Our adventure begins at sea, with a young half-elven sorcerer aboard the ship Ilmare. It is Malfac's first journey in his new role as first sorcerer, a newly minted position for seafaring trade vessels traveling from the island nations of Lucadia. But the route they are traveling is one that few, if any, vessels from the island nations would dare to sail. For it is known to be wrought with pirates, and their activity in this region has increased in recent years. Tales not only of the plundering of ships, but also of entire crews vanishing, to what the inhabitants of the island nations, a people well seasoned in the art of seafaring, can only attribute to the exploits of pirates. Though some tales tell of a ghostly vessel, one that is commanded by a dreaded undead pirate captain who forever sails the sea of Shalahir on an eternal maraud, turning those that would dare enter his waters into his loyal and undying crew, doomed to serve their lich captain for all eternity. Most veteran sailors shrug these tales off as nothing more than ghost stories, the kind of tales that are told to frighten the bright-eyed children of the island nations, should their gaze turn towards the sea and not their parents' bidding. It is here, aboard the ill-fated Ilmare, where both novice sorcerer and veteran sailor alike will come face to face with the nightmarish horrors that were believed to be only the things of ghost stories. Or perhaps they were merely mortal pirates after all, marauding with such skill and malevolence that their exploits had earned them their ghostly reputation. Much of that fateful night is still unclear to Malfak, who managed to escape after being thrown overboard and left for dead. Both lost. The Ilmare, a ship that had been in Malfac's family for generations, and a father who had sailed her since Malfak could first remember being tall enough to peer over the outcroppings of the cliffs that guarded his island home on the shore of the Sea of Shalahir, as he would eagerly await his father's return from one of his many adventures. Now, lost himself adrift at sea for days. It is on the twilight of the third day that a massive island appears, only to be swallowed up by the waves, and then to reappear again as the chaotic currents propel the beleaguered young sorcerer towards the island's sandy shores and towards his new destiny. Arriving under the cover of evening stars, Malfak spots a sea cave, a potential reprieve from the Shalahir's unrelenting waves, and a place where he may find shelter for the evening. A place where he is forced to relive the horrors witnessed, and a place that would be known as the origin of his vengeance. Who's ready for some Dungeons & Dragons, y'all? Welcome back to EpicSolo, where I play Dungeons & Dragons solo, taking on the role of both the Dungeon Master and the player, while building an epic fantasy setting in real time right here on the channel. Episode 3, The Cave. You know you love it. Some classic D&D. And so today, we'll be setting up our first scene using the Mythic GM Emulator. I have rolled on the fate chart, and I have asked a question.
Is there gonna be any combat today?
And the fate chart saith, yes, indeed. In the words of the warrior poet known as Redman, Reggie Noble, it is indeed time for some action. Let's take a look at the map. We'll start first with the 25 mile per hex world map, in which we now have some context for where the pirate attack took place. Enhance. Hurry up! All right, here we go. So here we are, Malfac's ship, attacked by pirates. And so we now know the location and the path that he traveled to get to his quaint little seaside cave. And so let's take a look now at the 5 mile per hex map where X marks the spot. And this map is for you, the viewer, and I, the Dungeon Master. Complete with numbered hexes and everything. Fancy stuff. Fancy stuff here. EpicSolo. Let's take a look at the 1 mile per hex map, which is our player map and represents about all that Malfak knows about the geography of the island. That's about it. And so as he floats ashore under the cover of night and finds his seaside cave, this is where he is held up. And so Malfak, having survived the pirate attack, is dining on crab and fish and nursing his wounds. I mean, he's been at sea for 3 days. It's brutal. And so he does have all of his starting equipment because although I am the Dungeon Master, I am not a total jerkface, and I am also the player. And so I got to spend some time with Malfak the past few days, and I learned all sorts of interesting things about his background, and I also learned that he's very disappointed that you're not watching the channel and subscribing and liking. So we'll get into that later, but suffice it to say, he's a bit perturbed for having been attacked by pirates, witnessing his entire crew be murdered, including some of his closest family and friends, before being forced to walk the plank, only to drift at sea for a few days before finding refuge in this quaint little sea cave that you will now see before you. There he is. I always say that like I'm surprised to see him. There he is. I put him there. But there he is. And so he has spent the past 2 days recovering and is considered to be fully rested. And all the magic users out there are like, yay! Yay! It has been, for the most part, uneventful with no disturbances. And at this point, he has made his requisite survival checks and has foraged enough food and water to last for 3 days. So it is now evening on the 2nd day. We are going to roll for weather on the weather table of the Solo Adventures Toolbox. So thank you to Paul Bimler, the author of the Solo Adventurers Toolbox, which we will be using throughout our adventures. And it's an amazing resource. Check the link in the description for details. And so we are going to say that it is autumn in our fantasy setting. And we also know that we are on the equator, so it's hot. And it is the beginning of the dry season. And so we're going to roll a 1d20 to do a weather check. Weather check. All right. So here goes. 18. Clear skies. Which doesn't really matter because we'll be stuck inside a cave. And so, but nice to know that we have clear skies. But who knows? Maybe we won't be stuck in a cave. Because as you'll see here in the next step, with the scene setup, it could be altered. Okay, and so let's not get ahead of ourselves because there are a few things we need to take care of before we roll to determine if the scene is modified. I said altered earlier, but a scene can be modified as an altered scene or an interrupt. And so a few things to address first, lists. And so our characters are Malfak. We know him, and the pirates. And so that's pretty much it. That's all for characters right now. Now the threads, I just simply have down here, vengeance. I mean, what else is there at this point for Malfak? And so that is our thread. Oh, you know what else? Get off the island. I mean, that's a pretty good thread. Survive, but that's pretty general. And so we have some threads here. We've got vengeance and get off the island. I imagine he probably doesn't want to live here for the rest of his life. And so you've heard million times now. You know, we've been spending 4 episodes setting up this scene, and so I will read this as fast as I possibly can. Malfak is a sole survivor of a pirate attack on a ship. After being thrown overboard and is left for dead, he drifts at sea before eventually finding shelter in a sea cave of an unknown island. Malfak spends 2 days recovering from the traumatic experience while foraging for resources. On the evening of the second day, Malfak finds a secret door. And so that's it. That's our setup. That's where we're at. We are ready to see what is beyond the door. But first, we have to roll a 1d10 against the chaos factor. And if it is less than, the scene is modified. If we roll higher, then the scene begins just as expected. And so chaos factor or less, the scene is modified. If we roll higher, it begins just as expected. So here we go again. Now the chaos factor, I should say this as well, it has been increased to 6. Because although we've had a few nice days here in our seaside cave, it's a bit chaotic, right? Like we don't have a lot of control over the situation. So chaos factor is up to 6. And now we're going to roll. Again, if it is less than, equal to or less than, scene is modified. And it is modified. So we have a modified scene. So something important to note here is that the roll determines if it's an altered scene or an interrupt scene. And so we know it's modified, but an altered scene is what we're going to be working through here because it was an odd number. We rolled a 1. And so an altered scene means that the scene is going to start as expected with an alteration. And so it's up to the players now to decide how is it altered. And so you can do this a number of different ways. Now, on the evening of the second day, Malfak finds a secret door. And so if I go back to camera mode here, you can see that Malfak has already gotten curious with his chaotic nature. And so the door has opened. And so how I think I want to run this altered scene is I'm going to ask a question. And so we're going to ask the emulator here, the Oracle, a question. So the question I'm going to ask to see if the scene is altered is Malfak immediately attacked when he opens the secret door? And so let's see. Is Malfak attacked when he opens the secret door? And so now we need to decide what the odds are. Remembering the chaos rank is at 6. And so because it's an altered scene, we're going to get things going here and say that it is very likely. That's our altered scene. We're going to go with it. It is very likely that the reason the scene is altered is because he's attacked when he opens the secret door. So 88. Ooh. Very likely it is a yes. And so now we know why the scene is altered. It is because sneaky Malfak thinks he's going to find a secret door and sneak out of the cave, but nope, he's attacked.
The half-elven sorcerer pushes against the secret door, which gives way easily, but is surprised when the door pushes back, and out of the darkness leaps 2 small creatures, snarling, covered in scales with eyes like that of a dragon, leaping forth to attack the half-elven sorcerer. Roll initiative.
All right, the moment that all 5 of you have been waiting for. All 5 people that watch the channel. This is it. Weeks in the making. Malfac's going to roll initiative. And it's a 17 plus 1, 18. That's not bad. All right, and now the kobolds will roll for initiative. If you hadn't figured that out already, we've got 2 kobolds. They're going to be rolling with a +2. Ooh, it's a tie. Spicy. Okay, so here we go. I put on my DM hat here. And now, in the rules for initiative, the player's handbook suggests that following a tie, DM decides the order. But here's how we're going to do it. One of our mottos here is we roll hard. And so what that means, and I'm sure some of you know what's coming here. We're going to take the creature monster player that has the highest dexterity bonus, and that is going to be our tiebreaker. And so the kobolds are going to be acting first. Yay! So here's the good news about pack tactics, which the kobolds do have. The kobold has advantage on an attack roll against a creature if at least one of the kobold's allies is within 5 feet of the creature and the ally isn't incapacitated. Well, what that means is one of these guys is going to get advantage, but not the other. And so, here we go. So the kobold nearest Malfak stabs at him with his dagger. He's going to be attacking +4. Ooh, and he will miss with a total of 7. So the second kobold, he will have advantage with his pack tactics, and so he moves closer to Malfak with his spear and shoves it right towards his gut. And, ooh, critical miss. And that's going to hit. That 7 is going to hit because he is +4. And so 1d4 +2. It's a 1, so he does 3 damage. All right, cue the battle music.
The kobolds, having drawn first blood, have wounded the half-elven sorcerer. As he reels back, his eyes go back in his head, and when he opens them, there are swirls of reds and greens as he casts the verbal and somatic components necessary for the spell. Creating 3 glowing darts of magical force, each dart hits a creature of your choice that you can see within range. A dart deals 1d4 +1 force damage to its target. The darts all strike simultaneously, and you can direct them to hit one creature or several.
So we're going to do something we usually don't do. We're going to send 2 of those darts at the kobold who wounded Malfak, and so here goes. See if it pays off. And it does.
And so 2 darts hit the kobold, and he is incapacitated.
Third dart. Ooh, let's see. We could get lucky. Ooh, strikes the other kobold. But he reels back, wounded. He is still alive.
The wounded kobold, having seen his packmate slain, stabs forth with ferocity towards the half-elven sorcerer.
No advantage. They're still vicious. Ooh,
and he misses.
Those intrepid adventurers following along at home, right now I hope you're screaming at the screen, because if you watched episode 2, you will remember that Malfac's sorceress origin is wild magic, and of course, the DM forgot to roll on the wild magic surge table. We'll never forget to do that again, but what we will not forget to do right now is use Tides of Chaos. That's right.
The sorcerer Malfac's eyes swirl with reds and greens as the kobold feels an anxious force around him. Looking left and then right, he doesn't notice the half-elf has stuck a dagger in his gut.
So Malfac's gonna roll using Tides of Chaos or advantage with his dagger. +1. Ooh. He will hit with a 12 +1 for 13. But is it enough to defeat the kobold? We're gonna have to see. He's already taken 3 damage. So we've got a hit. I'm gonna roll damage with my dagger. 1d4 piercing. Here we go. And it's enough.
Kobold's eyes look shocked as the dagger pierces deep and he keels over. Ah!
And Malfak has survived round 2. Whew. Whew. And that will end our scene.
Malfact, the mighty Kobold Slayer. That wasn't a scene.
Sure it was. I'm level 1. It's dangerous. Legend of Zelda told us it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. I've got nothing but this GM emulator that keeps getting me in trouble. And there's a lot of questions to set up our next scene. What's in there? Are there more kobolds in there? How big is the room? Are there any strong fighter types that want to join Malfak and help him out, please? And so we'll answer all those questions and more. Before we do that, we're going to update our lists. All right, so back to our adventure notes. And so we're going to update our lists. Do we have any new characters? We do. The kobolds. And so Malfak opened the secret door, which was an altered scene. So our first scene, the cave, Malfak thought he was going to sneak in through the secret door. No. He opened the door and was ambushed by kobolds. And that was pretty much it. He survived. And we'll take that. That's a good first scene. And so we got to see how to set up the scene, and we got to roll 1d10 against chaos to see if the setup was modified, and it was. Because it was an odd result, it was a 1, it ended up being an altered scene. And so there we are. And we're left with a whole lot of questions to set up scene 2. And I already know what I want to call it. It's going to be called Into the Dark. Seems good, right? Into the Dark. Yeah, great. Awesome. So we have scene 2 ready for some setup, and we've got a bunch of questions. And I might start off with, again, I don't care what the odds are. Is there somebody in there that can help me, please? But I'm excited to explore these caves. And so, thank you for joining us here for episode 3, The Cave. See, if I would have called it The Caves, it would be a little disappointing, right? Like, you didn't even really go into the caves. I mean, you just opened the secret door and almost got killed by some kobolds. Well, yeah, but we didn't. We survived. We had fun. We only missed the wild magic surge once. And so we'll remember that for next time. We did get to use our chaos magic, though. And so Tides of Chaos was used, and it was used effectively to get the killing blow with Malfac's dagger. And so threads. Kobold Cave. That seems like a good thread. Where does it go? Does it lead inwards towards the island? Maybe I should just jump off the cliff there and swim around. No, that wouldn't be any fun. What's in the cave? Who knows? So the Fate chart knows. So we will be asking some questions here in episode 4, Into the Dark. So until then, remember, you must gather your party before venturing forth. Unless you're playing Epic Solo.